Hello, welcome to Quackalope, thank you for being here. Today I'm bringing you a Kickstarter preview of Fateforge, Chronicles of Kaan from Mighty Boards. Now, if you're like me, and you love story-driven games, set in a RPG D&D-esque world with some classic fantasy archetypes and storytelling elements, then Fateforge is a game you absolutely should be paying attention to. This is going to be a game that utilizes the tabletop RPG dungeon crawl-like experience and merges it with an app-based system that helps modulate and run the AI of the enemies you're facing down, helps make ease of setup and actually gameplay flow a lot more accessible, and allows you to focus on the unique character traits, abilities, and upgrades that you're going to get along the way, which become the heart and soul of this game. Your characters start customizing themselves into these little fine-tuned powerhouses as you build out and satisfy your tableau, as you slowly start leveling up your characters and journey on through this story. Now, this is going to be built off of the IP and RPG that was released a few years ago, so there's an established world and lore and environment that they're bringing you into. That means that the storytelling, the approach, and everything that's sitting here on the table feels like it's been built out from, well, something that already exists. It feels rich and established, like they've played in this world for a long time already, and they know exactly where they want to lead you on this adventure. Everything from the little bit of writing details to the letters that you unlock across the course of your journey, all the way up to the weapons, items, and different abilities that you start unlocking, feels like it comes from an immersive RPG world. And that's because it does. In this video, I'm going to do my very best to give you a good sense of exactly how Fateforge plays on the table, what your experience will be like, and help you decide if this is one that you want to go ahead and back now, and hopefully get to the table sometime near in the future. So, Fateforge. The heart and soul of Fateforge is going to be a combination of the storytelling and then character progression. It's a classic sort of showdown, dungeon crawl-esque skirmish game, with various different story points and storytelling archetypes mixed in amongst it. You're going to have some sessions that are leading you down the main campaign, and that's going to be an overarching story. Right now, there's a mission to discover a little bit about what's happening in the world and collect some lost relics that have ended up in the hands that we don't want them to be. But along with that, you're going to run into a variety of various different side stories and missions and pathways that you can follow. And every time you end up at a rest location, you can decide to go off on any of these different adjacent adventures that allow you to then level up your character and continue progressing down the main storyline in a more direct and, let's say, powered up stance. This is going to be a campaign game, meaning you play from session to session, and it can host an hour to an hour and a half long play session, or if you want to sit down and work through a few of these storylines, you can actually play for multiple hours, save your game whenever you'd like, and jump back into it at any point in the future. The main functionality of the app is going to be twofold. First, you're going to have the story-driven section of the game. You'll be reading through a series of text, you'll have beautiful artwork pop up on the screen, you'll have ambient background music that helps you set the stage and the setting that changes from environment to environment. And you'll have some choose-your-own-adventure moments, things that the game itself will remember, decisions that you've made, whether those are side quests you've decided to go on, guards you've decided to fight, or adventures you've decided to ignore in favor of following a cat down some random alley. The app is going to catalog all of those. It's going to start chaining all of the different choose-your-own-adventure moments together to tell you the most rich and inviting story possible. The second part that the app is going to support is going to be the combat phase itself, and there you'll actually go through a process of following through the instructions, getting any custom items you have, pulling out all of the cards, tokens, and abilities that you might need through the course of the scenario. You'll have the layout of the actual scene you're going to be facing off against, which makes setup a lot easier than digging through a book for scenario 1.2.AB. It also allows these scenarios to be customizable and adaptable as the game continues to progress. And then you'll have any special rules you have, like adding stickers to the book that give you more rules or give you more guidelines throughout the course of play. From there, the app's really going to function as the thing that's helping run the AI of the game and the turn sequence specifically. You see, here we're going to have enemy reaction, player 1, player 2. We have a 2-player setup at the moment, And that enemy reaction is going to be one or two one-off ambient characters interacting with you throughout the course of play. I'll show you that right here. Like right here, we're going to have the guard. Now this guard has a standard set of abilities, but when you play him with the app and he interacts because the app has told him to do so, these abilities will be changed and adjusted based off of the scenario you're facing and, well, how well you're doing in it, I assume. So while the guard has his standard actions, the app is actually telling me to do something slightly different with him. To move him, or set him up as a guard, giving him a little bit extra defense and shield, or have him attack, which means he's going to attack again at the end of the enemy phase. From there, we move on to the turn sequence of our actual player turns, and there, you're not interacting with the app much at all. Instead, you're playing your character, and I'll get through how you do that in just a moment, because it's a really important part of this puzzle. Finally, all of the characters are going to act. After you've gone, all of the enemies are going to act, and the app just updates you. It tells you that that's what's going to happen, and you can actually go through during cleanup phase and mark which enemies you've killed, destroyed, and so the app is going to keep track of what sort of rewards, benefits, and extra little unlocks you'll get as you move from chapter to chapter and scenario to scenario. But that's the core functionality. It's straight, it's simple, it helps run the game, but it does nothing to distract or take away from the actual board game gameplay experience, which I know a lot of people, when they have criticisms of apps mixed with board games, they say that they don't want to be staring at the screen time and time again. Well, in this case, in Fateforge, you're not staring at the screen at all, unless you're going through the story-driven portion of the game specifically, and then you make your choice. Stare at a book, or stare at a screen. Both times you're reading, resolving, and one of them is remembering the decisions you've made. So, we'll continue through cleanup. Here I could go through and I could mark that I've actually been able to accomplish, get some of the objectives, kill some of the enemies, end the round, and continue on to the next round. 2 out of 4. Now, most rounds here are actually going to be very contained and very tight. You have to push your luck or continue playing with some negative consequences mixed in if you decide that you want to go beyond around 4 rounds per scenario. Everything here is self-contained. Everything is very tight. Everything encourages quick play and continuing to move through the story, not just getting paused or hung up on one fatal scenario. So, our characters. Let's talk about one of the most interesting or crucial parts of the game. First, of course, we have the story-driven element, but then the second thing that I told you was the way our characters actually develop, work, and progress. On our character boards here, you're going to see some locations. We're going to have our energy and our health in 2 big pools, an exhausted pool and an active pool. You're going to have locations where we have our special abilities, we have items that we've collected, we have our deck of cards for new abilities that might be available or things that we can unlock and spend money on to learn. We have our pool of dice. These are going to be the custom dice, each one representing a various different D&D or RPG class type. And each one will be resolved at the beginning of our turn, where we roll them and then determine how we want to interact with the board based off the dice that we've actually collected. So my rogue here is going to be better at quick movement, ranged attacks, but also has some close-up melee damage if she needs. Whereas the shaman right now, while he can mix in some close-up melee damage, he's mostly going to be good at some of his more elemental, knowledge-based attacks. And he's got a little bit of wisdom, a little bit of movement, a little bit of manipulation mixed in there as well. Now, you're always going to be rolling 4 dice, but depending on the weapons that you have, like I have an axe of sharpness here, I might get a modifier to add in a different type of dice, subbing one of my classic dice out for a little bit more of a customized dice pool, like I have that axe hefted and I'm ready to go to battle. At the start of every round, we'll both roll all of our dice, figuring out what icons we have. Then we'll actually set player order, who's going to be taking the first initiative, and who is the most aggressive, meaning who's going to be taking the attention of the various different enemies around the pool. From that point on, you then use your dice to resolve your action, using them however you can, to whatever degree you can. But this is where the puzzle starts to come alive. You see, every character has a combination of various different items that they've equipped, some in their backpack, many in their hands, and abilities that they've learned throughout the course of play that start manipulating those dice, changing one icon to another, expanding one icon to do a special extra ability, or add more damage, or do a backflip to gain a shield, or so many other little interesting things. So let's go through this here. For instance, my shaman right now has an axe of sharpness. That means that if I roll a red attack with basic attack with my red die, I will actually get a crit attack. That's what it's counting as. It also means that I have the additional red die here if I want to use it, and I also have a shield. That means any blanks that I roll, this little icon there, will be translated into shield tokens. These tokens are going to give you a little bit more defense on your turn, so it makes blanks not useless. Moving up here, if I roll any of these knowledge tokens, I can actually have an ice knife, changing a knife blade symbol into, if I want, an actual attack, or vice versa, changing a attack into a knowledge token. I have a project spirit, which allows me to do a critical ranged attack, kind of like firing a little magic missile, and I have a heal, taking any knowledge token and any other single die and giving someone in my zone 1 additional health. Along with that, I have my own standard abilities, but a ton of other abilities that I can unlock and learn throughout the course of the game. Now, where this puzzle starts to come alive is as I start getting cards that chain off of each other, I could change something into, like I could change a basic attack into a crit attack, and then I could have a card that takes a crit attack and makes it do 3 times the amount of damage, or makes it add 3 shields instead, or chains it into some other combination of icons, and those icons then spin off to other cards, and it starts creating this little puzzle piece where you're working out exactly how cards, items, and gear are going to combine from play session to play session. Here with the Rogue, I have a dagger, which is going to take any die and turn it into a basic attack, which is super nice and super powerful. I have Seeking Blades, which are going to be limited time use, but these blades are going to allow me to do a ranged attack with any die. So I'm very violent, which is nice. It's one of my favorite ways to play a rogue in a game like this, because on top of that, I also have the ability to sneak. Sneak is going to allow me to hide. I actually have a cutthroat ability, which I haven't leveled up here on the character so far, but that allows me, as long as I'm in a sneak position, to use a blade to then slit someone's throat from behind, dealing extra damage. That's amazing. That could be enough to take out a character without them even noticing or reacting to me at all. Up top here, I've upgraded Backflip, which allows me to take a regular foot and then do a foot plus a shield, which is fantastic because that means I just get more defense, which is amazing. I have a roll, which allows me to turn a blank into a foot, meaning those two things can chain off of each other very nicely. And I have a silent step. If I'm hidden, only minions in your zone can target you, meaning no one from around outside of my zone is going to be moving after me specifically. That's the puzzle of this game, to one small degree. Like I said, it begins growing and escalating as you start getting combinations and as you start getting more and more pairs to mix in. But on top of that, every skill that I have, along with some of my general on-the-board traits or skills, are going to start modifying the choose-your-own-adventure side of the game as well. Like, for instance, I have speed, which is on my board. I have stealth, which I've learned through playing the game, taking some very crafty actions. I have athletics from the backflip here. I have a second athletics here, and I have a second stealth here with a silent step. Or, like over here with my shaman, I have a Mino attribute or trait. Now these attributes and traits are going to be things that trigger success rolls or help you do extra challenges during the choose your own adventure side of the game. So I learned stealth by being really good at sneaking over a wall and following a guard to a specific location. That resulted in me growing as a character and getting better and better at my specific skill. So, as you start upgrading your skills, as you start learning and doing things throughout the course of the game, you're also going to get better at both sides of the puzzle. And sometimes you'll take cards specifically for some of those custom abilities and custom additives, and not necessarily because you need the on-the-board ability or the in-combat mid-game ability. But then you'll find that they still work well. They still start combining. They still start mixing together. There's an entire immersive story here that I've only just began to dip my toe into, and this is a prototype copy for the record in case you didn't pick up on that already, but literally I have an arsenal of cards. I believe this whole package goes from 1 to 510 at the moment, full of resources and cards that I've only just started dipping into and started exploring. The prototype that they sent here has something like 7 or 8 hours worth of gameplay in it alone, and that's the demo copy they've been sending around for us to check out. Fateforge is doing some really cool stuff. First off, it's pulling you away from the app while allowing the app to do the very best thing, the thing that I want board game apps to do more than anything, which is help moderate and run and support the game system like a DM would, like an RPG leader would, without me having to do all of that work myself, without me having to take the time to do the accounting or double check the scenario setup or make sure that I'm getting the right animals and guards and cards and pull all of the stat systems out of the box. I don't want to do all of that. I want a simple, clean, accessible system that lets me play the game as quickly as possible. Lets me journey through the story. It also is focused on a story that remembers the decisions you've made, and I find that impactful and I find that important, especially when you're playing in a world that already exists, when you're playing with something like Fateforge that has a history of being a RPG, of being a standalone IP that can bring you into the space and continue telling you stories that you're already familiar with, that you already are comfortable sliding back into. It has a lot of quirky, interesting humor. It has a few things that I'm still interested in exploring, like all of the random cats that continue popping up all over the place. I don't know if it's just that the team loves cats, that it's great marketing, or that it is tied to this world in a way that maybe we're all still not entirely aware of, but I do appreciate all of the bits of artwork and flavor that are spread throughout the puzzle. So, highs and lows, final thoughts, where are we positioned? Well, if campaign games and story-driven games are not your type, I don't know that Fateforge is going to fix that for you. This is, at its heart and soul, a RPG on the table. It's a DM-less adventure game, and it's a really good one at that. If you're looking for something that allows you, with a few friends, to sit down and dive into an immersive story, to play a game without needing a DM to kind of run every step for you, and you want something that's accessible, but that's going to get more and more complex as you play and is going to not hold your hand, but walk you through those introductions in a way that makes it really easy to continue diving into this story, Fateforge is doing that really, really well. I think this is an easy game to sell to anyone that has already started to love the board game kind of RPG market space. Anyone that has been intimidated by Gloomhaven should probably start at a game like this and start sliding in, dipping your toes in, and discovering what this board game world has to offer. Thank you for watching. Let me know if you have any questions down below. We're going to be probably putting out a gameplay here in just a bit, so stay tuned on the channel. We've got more stuff we want to showcase and more stuff we want to highlight here with Fateforge, but I wanted to give you a quick little overview, break down what this game is doing, and let you see if it's the right type of game for you. Whatever the case, whatever you do, remember to do the important thing, get out and play some games. We'll see you next time. Thank you.